Hello everybody, welcome back to another deck profile, and boy howdy, do I have one for you guys. You may be looking at the top and going, wait, what the heck, why is there a Dinomorphia Rexterm and a Soul-Eating Oviraptor right next to each other? And the answer is, I love Dinomorphia. I adore it. Ever since it came out and I pulled a Teresia in one of my first Battle of Chaos packs, I loved it. I love the concept of life points going super low and you getting benefits from that. In Magic, my favorite color is black, so it fits right in. The one problem with that is I hate trap decks. I hate playing against them. I really hate playing with them. And so having a deck that was all about lowering your life points super far, but also about just setting a bunch of traps, really didn't appeal to me. So for a long time, I've been trying to fit the Dinomorphia package into other decks, because it seemed like it could. If you just put in Teresia and like a couple of Frenzies, maybe a Diplos or something, you have a solid, essentially one card way to get to a solid Floodgate in Rexterm and a big beater in Kentragina. But the problem is, before there was no good way to get Teresia out without normal summoning her. And if you're trying to have her be your normal summon, why not just play Alistair? Like, Alistair's way better. For a while I tried to do invoke Dinomorphia, and that just didn't work because your normal summons were competing into each other. Finally, I found a way to slot it into dinosaurs, and that's the deck profile we're going to be going over today. I have not taken this to locals yet. It's mostly done. There's one card coming in the mail that I need, but I'm taking it to locals this week, and I'll report back with how it does. I'm going to be straight with you. This is almost certainly not the most efficient way to build dinosaurs, but for me, it was a fun challenge to try and fit the Dinomorphia package into a deck as part of its combo, and then have Rexterm as just a piece of the end board. And I think I really managed to work it. So, you know this channel. This is Lord of Locals. You'll probably be able to do fine at locals. If you take this to a regional or, heaven forbid, a YCS, please do not make me liable for it. I'm not liable for any decisions you make. But if you're taking to do really well, give a shout out. That'd be great. So we're going to get into the profile. We're going to just start with the individual packages, and then we'll go over some of the card choices, and then afterwards I will do a quick combo with your best, to make your best end board. First off, we have 3 Soul-Eating Oviraptor. I should not have to explain this if you know the dinosaur package already. If you don't know dinosaurs, this guy is far and away your best starter. He adds to hand or sends to grave, so he gets around Droll. He extends, he special summons, and he has a destruction effect. Like, this is everything you want in dinosaurs. If there's any card you want to see in your opening hand, far and away, Oviraptor is what you want to see. If you draw Oviraptor and 4 bricks, you can still get to an okay end board with at least like quasi 2 interruptions, which can work if your opponent's not doing pretty well. And that's saying something. So Oviraptor at 3, if I could play 10 of him, I would. Next 3 of is Baby Ceratosaurus. This is, I hesitate to call it a starter because you can't really do anything with it on your own, but it's integral to your combos because this is what gets you all of the pieces and all of the different packages. Spoiler alert, this is what summons Teresia. This is what makes the Dinomorphia package work in this deck. And you have to run 3 of it. I don't think you want to run Petite Pteranodon because a key point of Baby Ceratosaurus is it summons itself. And being able to summon itself for you to go Oviraptor, Pops, Baby, Special, Baby, to have an endless chain of dudes is really necessary. And starting with Oviraptor and Petite Pteranodon doesn't get you as far as you want. And I also, with the consistency cards we're running further on, I don't think you need the 4th copy. I think 3 is just fine. You have enough ways to get to it that I don't think it's that much of a problem. Now for the 2 ofs, we have 2 Tyranno. 3 is too much, but 1 is too few. You want to be able to summon this a couple of times per game if you have to really get into the grind game. But boy howdy is this a fantastic boss monster. He does everything you want to do. He has an inherent unrespondable summon condition. He has a mass Book of Moon that also destroys things and gets you some value from it. He is a game ender and a half. Goodness gracious, does this guy end games. Love this card. When I started building Dinomorphia, I tried to include him in it and he was okay, but I think bringing the Dinos to Dinomorphia was not the right choice. Bringing the Dinomorphia to the Dinos was the right choice, and he is a big reason for it. This should be 2. The last card I'm waiting for in the mail is a second copy of Archosaur, but you need Archosaur because this gets you to Pill, this gets you some Destructions, this starts your combo chain going, and it's special summonable off Misk. It's really the only thing you want to summon off of Misk, and it's just fantastic. Like, I was astounded by how good this card was when I first started playing this deck. I thought, I'd seen dinosaur decks from before the time it was made. I'm like, oh, those seem pretty good, and then I saw, oh, Misk was hit to 1. That would hurt him. Archosaur existing makes this deck possible. If you didn't have Archosaur and you still had Misk at 1, not a chance. Not doable. So 2 of those. I know it's only 1. You need 2 of these because if you draw 1, you still need to be able to get it off Misk. 1 Misk. I want to play more. Hey, Konami, you took Snow off the ban list. Can we have Misk to 2 or Misk to 3? Like, come on, throw us a bone. Disgusting. As far as I understand, I do need to check this, but as I understand, his protection effect counts for all dinosaurs on your board, even if they weren't on the field when you activated Misk. Please check that for me. Let me know in the comments if that's right, because if it isn't, it causes a couple of problems, but as I understand it, checking the wording, dinosaur-type monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. So it says, during this main phase, dinosaur-type monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. I understand that to be a floating effect across the board at all times, and I think that's how that works. Regardless, even if it wasn't, it keeps you you have it in your hand, it keeps your Oviraptor safe, it keeps your other things safe. And then, of course, on top of it, because why not, we have a graveyard effect to banish and just special summon Archosaur from the deck and get going with our combos. This card is nuts. Like, absolutely bonkers. And then the last one for the monsters, we have 1 Giant Rex. I'm of 2 minds about this. So this is a 44-card deck. Obviously, you could just cut the Dinomorphia package and be at a sick 40 and you could keep this in, but if you want to keep the Dinomorphias, I don't think Giant Rex is as necessary. You don't really care if you see him in your opening hand. He's a useful extender to get to an even nuttier end board, but I really don't think it's completely necessary because your end board without Giant Rex is like -1 activation on Dweller or something, so it's not that great. But as of right now, you need, with the extra bricks in with Teresia and Frenzy, I think you need a little bit of extra extension, and Giant Rex can get you there. 3 Lost World. Also an insane card. Holy crap. Like, I did not realize it was your opponent can't target monsters, period. I thought it was your opponent can't target dinosaur monsters, and your end board is actually pretty low on dinosaurs. So I was like, how good is it really? It's just there for you to do shenanigans with the destruction replacement. No, sir. Not by a long shot. This card protects from all targeting. Your opponent cannot target cards. Cannot target monsters. Forgive me. Your opponent cannot target monsters on the field with card effects except the token. They cannot imperm you unless they're responding to the Lost World, but that's the thing. They can't imperm you. They can't Kaleidoheart you. They can't Sulliek you. There are so many things that this protects you from. They can't target their own monsters. Your opponent's Kit Kalos cannot target itself if they have a token on the field. It will not work. They are not allowed to target any monsters on the field. So this card is crazy. It extends you, it protects you, and it honestly, surprisingly, this is your out to Mystic Mine. I was going to run a single Twin Twisters in the main for Mystic Mine, but I realized Lost World does it for you. Because you can, if you're in a Mystic Mine game, just summon a dinosaur try and summon a dinosaur every turn, fill up their board with tokens, and then link off your dinosaurs so that you have less or equal. And there you go. You can, obviously it summons them in defense mode, but if you can get rid of mine, you'll be fine. And that's really it. So like this is your main deck out to Mystic Mine. This is what lets you chip through and be able to get to the win against Mystic Mine, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. 2 Double Evolution Pill. We don't want to run 3. It's a bit of a brick because it's so searchable with Archosaur, but you also, just like Archosaur, don't want to have only one because if you draw it, you're not allowed to activate Archosaur. So we need two, but you really don't care if you see it in your opening hand because usually if you're doing any semblance of a combo, you're going to be searching it with Archosaur. And finally, one terraforming. We would like to play as many Lost Worlds as we probably could, reasonably, but this is just lets us play 4, and it thins the deck a little. I shouldn't have to explain terraforming. But that's our Dino package. That's the main one. That shouldn't be surprising to you at all if you have played any dinosaurs. That should be pretty run-of-the-mill. On to the small scrap package. Got 2 Scrap Raptor, 1 Scrap Chimera, and 1 Golem. The Golem is not super necessary, especially because it's a really rough brick, but it's in there for a couple of reasons, one of which we'll get to later, but the main reason is it makes your end board able to make an Appaloosa first, and that's really important, because by the time you start to make your end board boss monsters, Misk does not protect non-dinosaurs, and so by that point you need a way to stop Nib if they have Nibiru, and Golem lets you make Appaloosa first, and that's really important. As it is, if you wanted to get down to 40 cards, Golem is one of the ones you could cut, but I really think it helped you a lot. Not much to say about this. Usually you want to go Raptor and have a baby on the field to pop with Raptor, so then you can use the Raptor's effect to chain block the Wyvern. That's usually what happens, and I'll show you that in a combo. As it is, with the Golem, actually, I should mention, with a Golem, Scrap Raptor and 4 bricks gets you a 3 material Appaloosa, because you just go Scrap Raptor, pop for Chimera, Scrap Raptor alone and 1 card for your Wyvern to destroy gives you Appaloosa. You just go Raptor, Raptor pop, add Chimera, Chimera special, link into Wyvern, Wyvern to special, pop, special Golem from deck, pop your random card, Golem bring Raptor back, link off for Appaloosa. So Scrap Raptor on its own gives you a 3 material Appaloosa, which, is not great, but it can be enough. And a lot of this deck is you want to have good backup plans, and part of the reason that I think adding the Dinomorphia package in is it gives backup plans, but the Scrap package on its own has some solid backup plans. Now on to the contentious one, 3 Charisia, 1 Frenzy. Now, the inherent problem I found with adding the Dinomorphia package to things is you can't just add 1 Charisia. Because Frenzy requires the materials being Dinomorphias, this is the minimum number of Dinomorphias you can play. I was playing 3 Charisia and 1 Diplos at some point, because if you open a Charisia in hand and then combo and special Charisia from deck, you only have 1 material left in deck to use with Frenzy, so you have to go straight to Rexsturm, and you don't get your life points that low. As it is, I don't think that's that big of a deal unless that's your backup plan, but it's okay, still okay if it's your backup plan, because you can use Rexsturm to go down to half, and then they can't use stuff like Toad, they can't use stuff like Get Kalos, they can't use stuff like Kaleido Heart. And so I still think it's fine, and I do not want to be drawing a Diplos ever. I hardly want to be drawing a Charisia, because, if your backup is normal Charisia, like, that's okay, especially if I'm a Lost World, but still, it's rough going. But you don't need more than 1 Frenzy because you don't really care about drawing Frenzy. You want this to be a value add along through your dinosaur chain, and you also don't want to clog up your hand with cards that don't really do much to facilitate your combo. You want to be doing the same combo as much as possible, and multiple Frenzies gets in the way of that, and so we just run the minimum requirements to get this in here. On to some support cards. These are... I've been playing with these a lot. I feel like these are pretty good support cards. As it is, there are some that I'm happier about than others, but we'll talk about them when we get to them. So first off, 3 Fossil Dig. This is non-negotiable. This searches OVIRAPTOR, this searches Misk, this searches Baby, this searches your missing pieces. If you start with OVIRAPTOR, Lost World, and Fossil Dig, that is full combo. If you start with Misk, Fossil Dig, and Lost World, that's full combo. This fills out the places. It's a Rhoda. I shouldn't have to explain why a Rhoda is good. For that matter, we want more of that, and so we are also playing 3 Small World. This is another big reason Scrap Golem is in the deck, because sometimes we need a bridge. Small World is not an easy card to play, and you have to have the right cards in there. And if you open some of our other support cards and you don't have Scrap Golem in there, you can't bridge from the support card to like a baby or to a giant Rex or something, because you're usually is an Earth dinosaur at that point, and that's 2. So Scrap Golem adds just a random Earth for you to bridge Small World into. That being said, most of the time your Small World will be random Dino into Dogoran, spoiler alert, Dogoran's in this deck, into the Dino you need, or random Dino into Tyranno into the random Dino you need, that sort of thing. These bridges are pretty easy, since you're really only caring about searching one of 3 cards ever. This shouldn't give you too much of a headache. If you want a specific Small World bridges in this deck to know, I can make that in a separate video, maybe along with the test hands video. Just let me know in the comments. One Foolish. I'm not too sold on this. These next cards are all one-ofs. Only 2 of them am I particularly sure about. Foolish Barrier is not one of them. This only ever sends Misk. I have never needed to send anything else. Maybe if you open Chimera Burial, and 3 bricks, like you could go Burial, Chimera into Apollosa, but it still feels weird. Most of the time this is sending Misk, but still a second, more like a half copy of Miscellaneousaurus is not bad, and so I'm keeping it in. That being said, you probably could get away with cutting this, but that's up to you. Dogoran. It's useful to run a Kaiju main deck because you can get around stuff like Kaleidoheart. This does not send as a card effect, so this will get rid of Kaleidoheart and it will not come back. It's less useful against Sprite. It can get rid of Elf, and then you just have to deal with 1 Toad activation, which is enough to be said. And the downside of your opponent now has a 3k beater doesn't matter, because they now have a 3k beater dinosaur, and spoiler alert, OVIRAPTOR does not say target a dinosaur you control. You can pop your opponent's Dogoran with the OVIRAPTOR to special summon from grave, and that's just, you probably have won the game at that point. The attribute is the typing is useful, the attribute is useful. He is your biggest Small World bridge. Like I mentioned earlier, you bridge from random Dino into Dogoran into any Dino. The only one you can't search from Dogoran is Misk, but generally you don't want to search Misk with Small World or Fossil Dig. You want to search that with the OVIRAPTOR. So if you have a baby and Small World, you can go into OVIRAPTOR and then search the Misk with the OVIRAPTOR, and vice versa. So he is an extremely useful card to have around. And here's my favorite part I realized when I was building dinosaurs. When you're building dinosaurs, you just get to play Pank. Like, you just get to play him. There's no reason not to. He's an incredible, massively powerful going second card. And going first, if you open a Tyranno in hand, you can search Pank off of Evolution Pill, and then you just have an extra pop along with your Tyranno Disruption and Board Disruption. And it's fantastic. Free special summon for 2600 beater. He alone deals with Sprite Elf Toad boards. As you know, you go to the battle phase, you hit over Toad, you use them to pop the Elf, and then that's their board gone. It's fantastic. Pank is at 1 for a reason. Play it. Next one. Nemesis Keystone. This is here because it allows us to play Naturia Beast in the extra deck, and we can get into it really easy because we have a ton of level 4s, so we can go into Gallant Granite. It's a non-tuner, so usually you just end with a Scrap Raptor on board. Keystone, bring your Misk back to deck. Special Keystone, now you have a floodgate for spells. I really like this card, especially even if it's banished, it comes back to your hand, so if you use it and a dinosaur to pill for Tyranno, this gives you a free monster in hand to use to destroy with Tyranno. So if your hand is pill, Keystone, random dinosaur, 2 bricks, you can just pill for Keystone to get Tyranno, and then you automatically have material for your Tyranno. I really like this. I did not realize this was a dinosaur card until I watched a couple videos, and I was like, wow, that's insane. Whoever brewed that up is a genius. And this is the final one I'm not too sure about. I'm playing 1 Lithosogem, and the reason is because we've added the Dinomorphia package, we have a couple more bricks, so you want a few more extenders in here. And Lithosogem turns your babies into an actual combo starter, and heaven forbid you ever get 2 Earth monsters in your hand, because then you can just banish. It's not send, right? Yeah, you can banish monsters from the extra deck. Most Sprite decks, at least at my locals that I've seen, run 1 Toad. They don't run 2. If you can get rid of the Sprite's player's Toad, you're doing great. You can, this is hilarious, you can banish Desfrog against Tearlament, and suddenly their Branded in High Spirits doesn't do anything because they only run 1 Desfrog. There's enough utility here that I think Lithosogem deserves a spot. Again, if you want to try and go down to 40 cards, he's one of the first cards I would cut. But as it is, I think the extension and the disruption against the extra deck is nice. Okay, that is our sort of support cards for the combo. And then finally, we're going to get into the defensive cards. We have 3 Dark Ruler. Card's nuts. You got to play it. Like, this format, you have to be able to deal with Elf Toad, with Kaleido Heart, stuff like that. I have since learned that this does not stop Kaleido Hearts cannot be used as fusion material, but we're not playing Super Poly in this deck, so that doesn't matter. We'll talk about that a little when I go to the next 3 cards. 3 Droplet. Man, those Megatins. Look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but that is a beautiful prismatic secret. 3 Droplet. I think Droplet is kind of a pseudo Dark Ruler copies 4, 5, and 6. In this deck especially, because you have so many bricks, you're inevitably going to draw a couple, and then you can just use them to fuel Droplet, and it's not that big of a deal. It's a lot better going first than Dark Ruler is, because you can just set Droplet, and then when your Apolos is used up, you can just send it. Very useful card. The attack can matter because your guys are so big that if someone's trying to beat over you, they're not really going to be able to get that much higher, and then you can just put them to half in the damage step, and then just crash them into your stuff and win. I really like Droplet. Now you might be asking, Cody, why is this not Super Poly? And the answer is because we're running Dinomorphias in the extra deck, our extra deck space is really tight. You need a minimum of 4 Dinomorphias in the extra deck to be able to run this package, and that means you essentially only have an 11-card extra deck to play with, and there's just no room for Garura, let alone Starving Venom. And so I don't think Super Poly works in this deck. If you weren't running the Dinomorphia package, you could play Super Polys instead, or even in place of, not even instead of Droplets, but instead of the Dinomorphias themselves. But again, the point of this was to find a deck that I could shove Dinomorphias in and have it give a fighting chance. And so because of that, we won Droplet. And then 1 Called By. I am still of the opinion this card should not be banned. I think if you are trying to make the argument that it should be banned because it's a Saki one-of that allows combo decks to do what they're doing, well, yeah, because it's the trade-off between, oh, do I want to have something that interrupts you, or do I want to have something that protects me? And trading away a card slot for something that protects you really doesn't work. Yes, it's an interruption, but only if you're going first. And if you want a 1-card interruption going first, like, Called By's okay. There are better ones. And so it's like, it's only a problem really when you're going first and not using it as a defensive card, which doesn't come up that often. And so I honestly think this card could probably go to 2. I think there should be more defensive cards. Like, Gamma is a slight more of a problem in that it is way better going second than Called By ever was, and is still almost as good going first. Obviously, it doesn't protect if you have monsters, but for power spells like Branded Fusion, it's incredible. So it's like, if you think Called By is a problem, I don't see how you don't think Gamma's a problem, which it just seems insane to me. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a rant. 1 Called By, we'd play more if we could, but you need this. If they try to ash you, Called By stops it. If they try to draw you, Called By stops it. Doesn't stop Imperm, doesn't stop Gamma, but sometimes they just have it. All right. Those are our defensive cards. Now on to the extra deck. And in our extra deck we have, starting off, 2 Rexsturm, 2 Kentragina. This is the bare minimum. The bare minimum Dinomorphies you can play, because your ideal case is to Frenzy in a Kentragina to copy the Frenzy to make Rexsturm, which means you need 2 things to send off of Frenzy in the extra deck to summon out 2 monsters. So you need a duplicate of these. The pattern for this is you always Frenzy to summon Kentragina and send a Rexsturm. This way, if you try to activate Kentragina, you cannot be called by. This has happened way more than you would think. If you send Kentragina to summon Kentragina and you then try and copy, they will negate the Kentragina with called by. Now, that gives you a 4K beater, but, you know, a 4K beater isn't great if they're about to access code you. So, like, you need to be careful with your patterns for sending. That being said, this is essentially a one-card, very powerful Floodgate Battle Trick combo that float into each other, which is really insane. It's why I love the Dinomorphia package. It's why I think it can work in this deck. You need these. Next up, Dolka and Lagia. These shouldn't really have to explain these. If you're running Dinos and your Dinos are level 4, you want to be running these guys. I love to see cards that were being played a decade ago when I was playing still be pretty viable in the modern day in the right deck. And I love summoning Dolka. I never got to do it back in the day because Dolka and Lagia were both really expensive. Rescue Rabbits are really expensive. I couldn't afford Dino Rabbit. And I get to play Dolka these days. Dolka is not once per turn. Dolka you can negate twice. Dolka destroys. And then Lagia is a summon negation, so you can just negate their normal summon, which is insane. I really like these. That being said, with the pattern of the format right now, your first priority rank 4 is not these. Your first priority rank 4 is going to be Dweller because it's just nuts. Dweller says no to Tier. That alone should just let you understand why Dweller is our first priority. It says no against Tier. It's pretty darn good against Sprite, especially if they're running a Frog package because they can't get Toad back. They cannot get anything back. No, they can get stuff back with Elf, but they can't get anything back for Ronin Totem, which means it's very hard for them to actually get to Toad. And keeping them off Toad means you keep them off their negates, which is fantastic. With one interruption that can't really be negated because you can just activate it in their draw step. There you go. This is an interruption that gets around Dark Ruler, which is very important in this format, and it's just great. One Exciton. This could be Exciton or Dugaris. I don't like Dugaris as much. I think the OTK potential with Tyranno is not really particularly necessary, because if you're in a position where Tyranno gaining extra attack could win you the game, means you're probably already winning the game or putting yourself in a position where you're about to win the game. So I think Dugaris is not necessary. The drawing cards is not super useful. The special summoning from Grave could be useful, but if you're using 2 of your rank 4s to make Dugaris simply to resurrect something from the grave, something has not gone right and you don't need it. So that being said, I think Exciton's capability of Dark Ruler into like Scrap Raptor, Chimera, make Exciton, blow up your opponent's board is okay. It's not ideal, but you need something like Zeus, and I think having the ability to use Exciton as though it were Zeus without having to go through the trouble of battling with an Xyz monster is a lot better. So this could be a Zeus, this could be a Dugaris, but I think Exciton is really what you want here. And one Gallant Granite. This lets you use Nemesis Keystone to make Naturia Beast, and it's fantastic. I was shocked, again, when somebody said, yeah, we play Nemesis Keystone and Gallant Granite because you can just make it, search the Keystone, get Mist back, and make Naturia Beast. I'm like, I didn't even think of that. Mad Scientists brewed up that combo, and Mad Scientists are my favorite. So you play Gallant, you make this generally with Raptor and not Chimera. Yes, Chimera. You make this generally with Raptor and Chimera, detach the Raptor to search for Keystone, revive the Raptor with Golem, and then you're off to the races. I love this card. You will not really ever use the second ability because if Keystone is in your hand, you're not going to summon Granite because there's no reason to. So you really won't ever use the second one. One Linkuriboh. This is the backup plan for if you need to get Archosaur off the field, and it comes up in a couple of combos. You need to get Archosaur off the field, and this is the easiest way. If your hand is Archosaur, Random Dino, 3 bricks, Linkuriboh is what lets you have a non-dinosaur to make with Pill. So Linkuriboh is just useful. Along with that, Secure Gardna. Linkuriboh into Secure Gardna after summoning Archosaur gives you Tyranno with Pill. So this is necessary. This also stays on the field, prevents a little damage, which can be useful because you're running Dinomorphias. You won't really ever have the Dinomorphias on field at the same time as Gardner, but it's a corner case that comes up. Useful card. Scrap Wyvern. This card makes the Scrap engine tick. You make it with Scrap Raptor and a random thing. You revive the Raptor. You pop the Raptor. You then special summon Golem and add Chimera. And now you have a bunch of material to work with. It's only one Scrap Monster required. I made that mistake. I was like, oh, it requires 2 Scrap Monsters. No, it requires 2 monsters, including a Scrap Monster. So you can make this with a random Archosaur and a Scrap Raptor. Very useful. Its pop effect is not negligible. If you're going second, try and use its pop effect to get rid of something your opponent has. Some boards can occasionally end with Wyvern, Raptor, and a Tyranno on the field, which means Tyranno is now an extra thing because Wyvern will just pop something. So I really like this card. Get to know what this thing can do. That being said, always remember, if you are going first and you're trying to use this, have a card for it to pop, because otherwise it's going to have to pop himself, and now you can't make Apollousa. 1 access code. This could be access code, this could be Boral Sword. It's really just an OTK enabler beyond Tyranno. But this is more useful because against mine, you can summon a bunch of tokens to your opponent's field and then link everything off into an access code, and now you have a free way to blow up the mine. So this is more useful than Boral Sword, I feel, but it's not really in there for the OTK potential. It's in there for the destruction and for the mine destruction. Apollousa, key piece of your end board. This is your stop against Nib before it gets off. This is what lets Scrap Raptor be an okay starter. Apollousa does everything, and its alternate art gold is about $10, so it's surprisingly affordable. And then finally, Naturia Beast. I, again, love that these cards that came out when I was playing a decade ago are seeing play. It is phenomenal. And if you read this, let me try and get a little closer. If you read this, does it say once per turn on it? No, it does not. In fact, Naturia Beast is a floodgate. Naturia Beast says Runic is not getting off the ground unless they can have a million things to negate it, except that doesn't work because they're all spell cards, so we can just laugh to the bank. This stops Runic. This stops anything that is spell card heavy. It's fantastic, and the fact that you can have it as an integral part of your combo because of Granite and Keystone is mind-blowing to me. And then finally, a slime token. I would have a... Shut up, computer. I would have an egg token if I could, but as it is, a level 1 slime token is a pretty good placeholder. And then finally, the side deck. This isn't particularly interesting. It's pretty similar to my Predaplant side deck with a couple of different inclusions. 3 Kaiju. The only reason that these are Kaiju and not Lava Golem is you need your normal summon in this deck. There's no other way around it. And you still want to have that non-effect breaking of the board. It also allows you to have a budget option instead of Lightning Storms. You can run Kaiju Slumber. You don't have the back row removal capability, but it lets you run a board wipe that's pretty darn good, gives you a little extra value, and is much more on a budget. Though these are a lot more affordable than they were since the Megatins, but I know I picked these up for about, I think, $20 a pop, and now they're at about 25 and rising, so obviously they're still pretty expensive. But if you don't want to pay up for Lightning Storms, you can run Kaiju Slumber, and that would be why you have 3 separate Kaiju. That being said, Lightning Storm does everything. Works against back row. Works against Link decks, except Marincess, but you can just Lightning Storm. I guess they can negate that. Still, very helpful against a lot of decks, especially the back row decks. The only thing it's not great against is Mine. If they mine you after you comboed, you can no longer activate Lightning Storm, which is why we're also running Twinnies. 2 twins, 3 is slightly too much. You don't want to be putting in 3, and you really want Twisters in there to be able to take care of business. You might notice that this is a lot of back row removal, and there's even one more sort of back row focused card here in Red Reboot. Fantastic card, by the way. It's at 1 for a reason. Play it. And the reason is back row is really what hurts you. You can deal with monsters pretty well because if they interrupt your combo, you can just banish 2 for Tyranno and then blow up their board with Tyranno. So you deal with monster boards really, really well. Back row is what really kills you, and so a lot of the side deck is devoted to back row. And then finally our going first cards, 3 D-Barrier, 3 Appointer. D-Barrier is a blowout against so many decks right now, against Tyr, against Sprite, against Branded, against Exo-Sister, not against, kind of against Mathmech. You can't keep them off the links, but you can keep them off the Laplacian and Alambertian, which can be really useful. I like D-Barrier right now. I think it is currently better than Contact C because there are just too many outs to Contact C right now. Everybody has incidental ways to get rid of it. And so while I normally like my Buggy Boy, we can't do it. And then a Pointer is just fantastic. It's Dust Shoe on a stick. Or it's Dust Shoe at home. And you're using up your hand usually, so revealing your hand is not that big of a deal. And paying 2,000 life points is also not that big of a deal because you have Dinomorphias and you want to pay your life points anyway. So, like, a Pointer is just a fantastic card. I bought a couple after seeing it played, and I am just in love with it. So that is the side deck. That is the deck and everything. I will run you through a quick full board combo real quick. And, well, I say real quick, but it's actually kind of a lot. So we'll go through it as fast as possible. But be warned, this is a little convoluted. But this is part of the reason we play Dinomorphia is because of what this lets us do. So, you need a baby, an Oviraptor, and a Lost World. This baby can also be a Misc. You just need Oviraptor, Lost World, and either baby or Miscellaneousaurus. As it is, we'll show it off right now. So, first thing you do, activate Lost World. Second thing you do, you normal summon Oviraptor. Chain 1 Oviraptor, chain 2 Lost World. They can no longer ash you, which is fantastic. Give them a token. It's a bit off camera. Slightly on camera. Give them a token and search out your Miscellaneousaurus. Now, if you're under draw, which you shouldn't be at this point, but if you like fossil dig or something, you're under draw, you can send it, but as it is, we want to add it to hand because we really, really want to then activate it. And since we activated it, all our dinos are protected. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe it is correct that if you activate Misc, all of your dinosaurs for the rest of this main phase, even if they aren't on the field at the time, are protected. Then you banish Misc to special summon from deck Animadorned Archosaur. Archosaur blow up the baby in deck or in hand to special summon another baby. Now here's the important part. You then use Oviraptor, pop the baby, special summon the baby that was not on the field already. I have accidentally done this on EDO Pro, and it is not forgiving. You might be able at locals to get around and say, you know, hey, I prefer this rarity, but I'm really just swapping them out, and they'll say, sure, fine. Just to be safe, be careful. You destroyed a baby, so you get a special summon from deck. We are going to special summon Scrapraptor. Scrapraptor effect, blow up baby. You now get another normal of a scrap monster this turn, and you get a special summon for Tricia. Tricia effect to search and set Dinomorphia Frenzy. Now, let's get cracking. We are going to link off Raptor and Archosaur for Wyvern. Wyvern effect, special summon Raptor, blow up Raptor. Chain link 1 Wyvern to special summon from deck, Raptor chain 2 to add from deck. So we will get ourselves a Chimera to hand and a Golem to field. And then we have to pop something. Wyvern effect, target the token replacement destruction with the Lost World, and we will destroy our last copy of Baby, and that gets us a special summon to Giant Rex. Okay? Now, here's the fun part. You are about to do an interesting play, and it's this. You're going to overlay your Oviraptor and your Rex for Dweller, and then you're going to immediately use Dweller to pitch the Rex. This is important because for us to get a little extension from the Rex, we need it off of the Dweller. Yeah, you only get a single Dweller activation on your opponent's turn, but that should be all you need. Now you have space in your board to normal Chimera and special summon Raptor. And you will overlay these two for Gallant Granite. You will detach specifically the Raptor. Very important that you detach only the Raptor here. Well, obviously you pick, but you need to detach the Raptor here to add from deck a Nemesis Keystone. You will then activate the Golem to special summon the Raptor. Our field is full. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monsters here and one in the extra monster zone. And then you will link off the Golem, the Wyvern, and the Granite for Apollosa. Now, keep in mind, Apollosa is not a dinosaur, and so she is reduced by 500. Is she on? Yeah, okay, you can kind of see the Apollosa. Apollosa is reduced by 500 for the Lost World, so she only has 2 activations here, but that's still good enough to stop a nib on this turn. Of course, by now they probably would have nibbed you, but even if that were the case, you still had a bunch of dinosaurs, so you could still make something out of it. That being said, oh, we forgot something. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, you guys are probably all yelling at me. You added a double evolution pill off Archosaur. You destroyed the baby. That got you a special summon and the pill. Don't forget the pill. Very important. You will now activate Nemesis Keystone to special summon itself. Return Misk to the deck. And you will sink for 5 to make Beast. Beast is also reduced, and we're summoning these in defense because Lightning Storm is not a card. We can do Beast in attack mode. Haha. It is also reduced by Lost World, but again, you're not really going to have... You shouldn't have much of an issue of your opponent attacking over your stuff because you're going to have some combat tricks. Now, we can activate Pill, banish Keystone and Rex to summon a dinosaur from deck. If you had a Tyranno in hand already, you would summon Pank, but as it is, we do not, so we will summon a Tyranno. We banish Giant Rex, so we'll get it back, and then you will overlay 4. I prefer Dolka if you are scared of a normal summon or a trap card, or evenly matched, you would go into Lagia, but as it is, you just get another rank 4. Dolka is... Now, the thing about Dolka and Lagia is they are dragons, so they are also reduced by Lost World, but again, this shouldn't be that much of a problem. End phase, Keystone returns to hand. You now have, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interruptions, and 3 separate floodgates, along with Rexsturm's Battle Track capability. That is insane. You're protected against spell cards. You're protected against cards in the graveyard. You're protected against monsters on the field. You're protected from monster effects everywhere. Your stuff can't be targeted because of Lost World. This is your Dark Ruler protection. Because if they Dark Ruler your board, you're really sad, but you can still make Rexsturm here. It sucks because you can only make Rexsturm, but you can still make Rexsturm here and have a 3k Battle Trap non-targetable floating guy. And so this is the real reason I run the Dinomorphia package in here, is because it gets you just so much extra oomph and resiliency in the end board that I wouldn't do it any other way. But that is it for the profile. Let me know if you want to see a test hands video. These test hands by far are much more complicated than the Predaplant ones because your board options are very different depending on what you start on. Usually with your Predaplant deck, the board goes pretty simple. Find some way to get to Branded Fusion, find some way to get to Ambula Melodies. With this, you have a number of different end boards. I have a whole Google Doc where I took every starting combination that I could think of and then tried to figure out what board to go to. It's been deprecated because I figured out some other options, and this was before I figured out about Granite and Naturia Beast. But there are a lot of different ways. So let me know if you want to see some test hands in the comments. I love seeing interaction in the comments. It's one of my favorite things. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.